Morning glory and evening grace, America. That was the president in the Oval Office earlier today. I'm Hugh, joined by Ben Domenech, host of the Big Ben podcast on the Fox Podcast Network, also a Fox News contributor. The Big Ben podcast this week is fabulous with Bill Maloogian, and we also have Winston Marshall, and we're going to talk a little sports here. We're going to get to Iran, Ben, but I got to start with, do you follow 3-Year Letterman?
Oh, do I follow 3-Year Letterman? I'm a huge fan of 3-Year Letterman. He is doing the Lord's work on X, the everything platform.
Do you know that he has 1.5 million views of his post about Don Lemon this morning?
That's fantastic. That's wonderful.
Every time I think, okay, the joke's over, there are still millions of people who can be conned.
Yes, absolutely. It's funny, and look, I commend his feed to everyone who does not follow 3-Year Letterman. You will get the information that you need and didn't know you needed to have.
Yeah, and you will also get to mock people like Don Lemon mercilessly and lawyers. All right, but I brought that up because you talked about sports, and I want to share with you a point of view. I grew up on Pete Franklin. All right, he was the 3WE new sports talk guy at night. I think probably 8 to midnight. It might have been 9 to midnight, but he was on 3 hours or 4 hours a night. He was fabulous. He eventually went to New York. All he did was sports. He wouldn't do politics. Made me laugh, taught me sports. And then you brought up Keith Olbermann today, who I've gone a few rounds with, and it's not really fair because I actually think Keith is dumb. Just dumb.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. I think Keith has that classic sort of experience of someone who is book smart and life dumb. I think that he actually is he's very well read. He has a lot of different references he can pull out of the bag. He's kind of like the reverse Dennis Miller, in lots of ways, if you think about it. But my real objection is he was a good anchor.
He was.
I grew up
sports
watching
anchor.
Big Show and everything like that. And it was, I think it was a real loss. My equivalent probably for you, for Pete Franklin, was the George Michael Sports Machine.
Oh yes.
One of the things that really, I think is sad for a lot of these guys, and that's why I brought Colbert into it as well. When I was talking about this, is that if you are like, kind of a late 90s teenager like I am, and you saw these guys in the 90s and the early 2000s, you have a different image of them because you realize what they were good at. You saw them when they were good at something, and then they became something else. And I do want to just kind of say there's something that's lost when that happens. There's something that's lost when you have, a good sports writer who just turns totally political, or a good sports anchor who decides my opinions about politics matter more than anything that I think about the Yankees. And that's, I just think, something that is sad on a certain level. And it's one of the things that just bothers me about everything that we've seen going on within sports media. It's also, by the way, why Barstool is such a huge success.
And Bleacher Report. I live on Bleacher Report. Yeah. Let me ask you about, now, I got to walk a very careful line here. It is my policy. Never drag someone for whom you have worked. So I'm not dragging the Washington Post. I didn't have anything to do with the sports coverage. But I talked to John Ellis of News Items today. He informed me that they're losing $75 million a year. They're going to lay off a whole bunch more people, and that Jeff Bezos may actually sell it. There are buyers, but he's sort of sick of, he made a bad purchase. It's not his livelihood. It's not his passion. He doesn't know what to do. It's not something he can sell. But when I heard they're killing the sports, I want to compare it with Cleveland.com. The Cleveland Plain Dealer is what I grew up on. They're thriving because of Dave Campbell, Illabuck Six. He is their sports editor, and he realized that sports fans are the lifeblood of circulation. I pay for so much stuff I don't have to pay for at Cleveland. The Cavaliers podcast, the Orange and Brown talk, the Ohio State Buckeye talk. I get the newsletters. It's sports. How can the Post be walking away from sports?
Congrats to you, by the way, Hugh, because you have the kind of perfect scenario of frustrating teams and great coverage.
Yes,
which is something that I had for most of my, something I had for a good chunk of my life. The funny thing is, almost as soon as our franchises got good, the paper went woke. So, the Caps are, hoisting the Stanley Cup, and they're like, well, but isn't Ovechkin problematic?
Yeah. By the way, I'm not a hockey guy, so when you made your references to Ovechkin, You then filled in he's a Russian. I really don't know anything about hockey because hockey was never in Cleveland except for like 2 years.
Hugh, he has one of the greatest lines in the modern history of sports when he was asked about his injury early after coming into the league, and he responded, "The Russian machine never breaks."
He's like a bad guy from a Stallone film.
Yes, exactly. So no, he really is. But this is the thing. You had quality teams and people were trying to find problems with them. At the same time, they were just devoted to these woke causes over and over again. And really the featuring of these voices that were more about kind of agonizing over how awful it was and a stain on the nation that we had, the Washington Redskins here. And to me, and I'm not being entirely facetious about this, I think that sports section died when Dan Snyder sold the team. Because they basically, made buck off of just going after him for the pleasure of their.
But it's a great sports. The base. I don't like the Nationals. I'm an American League guy. I'm a Guardians guy.
Yeah.
But I read Tom Boswell, and I don't like the Redskins. I don't follow them. I don't dislike them. They're national, and I'm a Browns fan. But they've got great franchise. The Caps are, forever. They're like the Cavs. They'll never win anything. But I guess the Cavs won in 2016. You've got a great base of people, and you can sell newspapers and content.
There's another element of this, Hugh, that you probably know or just can incline toward. They are the broadest and most diverse in terms of any of the unifying elements in D.C.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, you're right.
You have
that makes
black
sense.
and white fans together with completely opposite political views, and they are, joined at the hip cheering for their team. So it's actually this great. It's one of the few unifying things in this area, which, by the way, is an area where there are people who actually. Not everyone is transitory. Not everybody just comes in and out, and that's why my mom gets a season package every year that us kids buy for her to go to the Nationals games. She loves baseball. She scores the games, and she sits across from two old black dudes in their 70s, and they just go back and forth about which relievers they like and which people they hate. And that's the kind of thing that is great for a community.
Well, how would you rate the Beltway as a sports town? I've told people Cleveland may be the best sports town in America. Compared to L.A., it certainly is about 1,000 times better. And the Orange County with the Angels and San Diego, Southern California just does not love them the way that Cleveland does when there's no alternative. How do you put the Beltway sports community in there?
DC is second tier. The reason that we're second tier is because it's actually a basketball town, and the basketball team sucks. And has always sucked. I saw Jordan on his tour here. I saw him in Yao Ming's first game here. I went to that one, and it's one of these things where this is an area that really is more basketball focused after the Redskins, and they just don't have that. And unfortunately, until that gets good again, they're
take a minute before we go to the break. We'll do a Ron in the second segment. Tell the audience who George Michael is, because when I moved there in '83, I was hooked immediately, and he was a forerunner of ESPN, actually.
He really was, and he had this amazing clip show, and with all sorts of funny jabs and commentary and things like that. He was just an outsized personality. They made fun of it on SNL, if you can look it up, with George Will's Sports Machine.
Oh no, really?
One of the epic clips from SNL with Dana Carvey, I believe. But it's one of these things that it was just a forerunner of that idea that this is a format that could work. You could do these packaged clip shows from all around the country and show kind of the best and the bloopers and everything like that. And it was must-see viewing for me as a kid, and it's still something that I think of.
Did you watch the rest of Channel 4, Bob, the Weatherman, Jim Nance?
Yes.
I mean, it was the greatest television local station I think I've ever watched consistently.
It was incredible, and we're both sounding like old guys right here.
Well, I am an old guy. You're not, but I was a dad watching this, and you're a kid.
But look, I think that this is another situation where we have lost so much in terms of local coverage. We've lost local coverage that is high quality. We've seen so much of it just drained and not be replaced, and that's actually the news that people care the most about. It's very silly to me.
You mean that none of the snow has been removed from D.C.? You mean that?
Exactly. Why does that happen? There's a guy from New York Mag, digs into it and finds out that there's not enough, that they had promised a bunch of different snow plows, and then they had far fewer that were actually out on the roads than Mayor Bowser had said. So my point is just like, that local coverage is what we need back. We need to bring that back.
I'm going to talk with Ben during the break. But you folks out there, no matter how bad you think your local services are, they are not D.C. in a snowstorm. It is a nightmare still, and there's another one coming. Ben Domenech will stay here and be here to talk to you Ryan after the break. Stay tuned. I am back with Ben Domenech during the break. Ben, I'm going to save all the Iran stuff for the next segment. So let's talk about a story that doesn't matter. Don Lemon. I think anyone who doesn't know how traumatized those kids are in that church and what the parents were thinking, because churches have been invaded and people have been shot somewhat routinely over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Do you think Don Lemon has a brain? How could he have done this?
That's a really tough question to answer, Hugh, without besmirching somebody's character. Look, I have a very, very low opinion of Don Lemon. I think that he's a very stupid person. He has been incredibly misogynist to several of my friends when he was at CNN. I do not like the man at all, but I think that I generally viewed him as harmless, meaning stupid, rude, jerk, harmless. This was something that was truly harmful.
Yep.
Harmful to a community, harmful to a church. I cannot imagine what it would feel like sitting with, when we go to church, the older daughter stays with me and younger daughter goes to Sunday school and it's I cannot imagine what their reaction would be like to something like this. They would think that there was something going on that was going to end up, putting their lives at risk.
Yeah, Minnesota is an open and a closed conceal, carry, and a shell issue. There could have been people with heat in there, and I honestly, I've seen too many clips. Colorado Springs comes to mind. Yep. Where the guy drops the shooter at the door with a perfectly fired 2 rounds because he was going to shoot up the whole mega church.
Yep.
There are parents thinking, I'm surprised those demonstrators didn't get a chair in the head.
I got to be honest. I think that they really, not metaphorically dodged a bullet in the sense that this is a situation that could have gone much worse. But look, we have to make a clear example of this situation. You don't get to just say, I'm holding a phone in my hand and I have a YouTube channel so I can violate the law. And that's just not the way that this works, and it wouldn't work if I and a bunch of friends of mine decided to go into a mosque and start yelling at people, and that kind of thing, and then said, well, I write for places and I'm on TV, so I get to do this. No, that's not the way that this works.
Yeah, there's actually no constitutional protection. Some states have protection for journalists, but not the federal law. There's no status for journalists. Everyone's got the same First Amendment rights, and they do not include what Don Lemon did. Now, I'm not too sure I'd do more than give him a hefty fine. Abby Lowell's not cheap. I almost went to work for Stan Brand and Abby Lowell when I left the Reagan administration.
Okay, so why is it always Abby Lowell? Explain this to me, Hugh.
He's good.
It's always Abby Lowell.
He's really good. If Hunter Biden had started out with Abby Lowell, he would not have ended up convicted. But he wouldn't have tried to pull a fast one, in my humble opinion. I think he ends up with cases because he's really good. I don't know. Do you think Don Lemon's out of money to pull a stunt like this?
I don't think that he actually does, though I will say we don't actually know how much money he got from X when he was briefly hired, to be a journalist for them, and then promptly dismissed after an uncomfortable interview with Elon. I think this is a situation that has to happen on a certain level just to send a message that this is something that you can't do.
Agreed.
You're just some random YouTuber.
Right, we're coming back on the network. Stand by.
That, but I disagree.
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Ben Domenech, host of the Big Ben Pod, is with me. Great episode this week, including Bill Melugin, who I did not know was going up to cover Congress, and that wonderful guy from Great Britain how did you find Winston Marshall? I'd only seen him once.
Winston is a phenomenal guy. He has do you know why he's famous?
No.
Winston Marshall is famous because he was the banjo player in Mumford and Sons.
Ha!
and he got kicked out of the band, or essentially politely asked to leave in British fashion after he endorsed a book by Andy No, and then refused to apologize for endorsing the book. And he is, I think, personally, both brilliant and a guy who fully understands what's going on with the UK, Europe, and the American relationship, and how toxic Britain in particular has become toward its own heritage, which I think
good for
is
you
really
for grabbing him. He's in the news right now, and I thought it was an excellent get. Let's talk now. What does Ben Domenech think is going to happen in Iran? Is it go or no go this weekend? Are we going to be talking about it again a Friday from now about whether it's go or no go?
Well, personally, I thought it was going to have a little bit more time, but then I will admit that off air with your producer, he reminded me that there is a certain anniversary on Sunday.
Yep.
Of that I think might appeal to the president in terms of just making for a good Truth Social post, and I think that also one of the things that we know about Donald Trump is that he makes decisions before he makes the decision, meaning he has already decided what he is going to do. It's just sort of he has this kind of meandering way of saying, oh, we're going to talk and we're going to see what's going to happen. And, maybe there's a deal to be worked out and maybe there's something that he's already decided what he's going to do. And I think that we know that by now. When he comes to foreign policy, he had determined he was going to do the Maduro thing well before it happened. Okay. They had more than a month of lead up time and practice and everything going into it to make that happen. And so I think the president has already decided that he is going to do this. It's just a matter of his timing. And I think that's probably going to be within the next couple of days. And we're going to have to. I mean, Hugh, this is uncharted territory.
This is big. And this, by the way,
huge.
that can be anything from a couple of blown up IRGC barracks to sinking what's left of the Iranian Navy to blowing up Karj Island to just doing a 15-day campaign.
I think it's 1 and 2 personally. I just think that's. I think he's going to. I think this is going to be significant. And look, there's a major roll of the dice with this one that I'm not sure that, everyone in the country is necessarily, prepared for. But look, this president, gosh, Hugh, he's a year into his second term. Is he the most important foreign policy president that we've had in this century?
Saves us from a nuclear Iran, yes.
Just in terms of the impact that he has had in this short amount of time, it's astonishing to me because I just don't think that people necessarily expected it. I also think that it's going to put some people in a bind around him because, the whole argument for him that was advanced by a certain segment of people who said, who basically tried to pretend that Donald Trump was a dove, which is not true and it's never been true. But then there's also people who I think tried to kind of frame him as being something that he wasn't. Look, he sees the opportunity here, and I think that this guy actually has deep empathy for the people who are getting killed in the streets. And that's something that, you saw when it came to the young people getting killed in Ukraine. He always brings it up. It's as if, he can't stand the fact that journalists sort of forget to mention the death counts and stuff like and reports of that nature are being put on his desk on a daily basis.
Yeah, John Ratcliffe is the dog that never barks. But the director of the Central Intelligence must go in there every day with more pictures and more numbers. And the 100%. Numbers on some of the independent reporting, both in Iran and Israel, is getting up closer to 70,000 people were murdered.
I mean, it's astronomical. I mean, it's incredible in terms of the degree of bloodshed that is going on. And, I think that there is an opportunity here to achieve something good, to achieve something that could remake the map and be a great benefit, not just to us, but our allies. And I think the president has probably already decided what he's going to do, and it's just a matter of time until he does it.
All right, Ben Domenech, there were a lot of people who were invested in the idea of making Iran into a responsible regional player. President Obama and his whole team, President Biden, their whole team, all the appeasers, they really thought they could bring Iran into the community of nations. Do you think any of them have realized in the aftermath of this horrific 2 weeks what this regime was never playing straight with them, that they got taken? In other words, they answered the prince from Africa's email and sent him money.
Hugh, I think Ben Rhodes wakes up every morning, looks himself in the mirror, and says, "I am a handsome man with a full head of hair." That's what I think. so look, I just do not think there is no willingness on their part, and I have certainly not seen it publicly. I do not expect to see it. To look at this situation and to have any kind of reconsideration of all the bad decisions that they made, and they were terrible. I mean, it set us back in ways that. I think historians will write about, in significant ways. But look, the point at this juncture, I think that we have to hope for and pray for, if you are, of the prayerful mind, is that whatever operation that happens is one that Americans can execute with success. Because I think that will be of great benefit to the people of Iran, and I think that it will be something that will help, ideally, prevent this continued bloodshed, could prevent this type of rampant loss of life that we have seen, and set the regime back on its heels in a significant way.
Do you think Americans are aware that the Iranians might be able to hit the Lincoln? They sent ICBMs
Yep.
and they hit, or ballistic missiles, and they hit Al-Assad Air Base very precisely.
Yes.
They have precision do you think they can kill a lot of Americans before they go down?
I absolutely think that they can, and Hugh, I don't think that Americans are aware of that. I just don't. I don't think that this story has been, fully unspooled, and I think that people are not really paying attention to it. They've been focused more on the domestic stories around ICE and Minnesota and everything else like that. In recent weeks, they haven't been paying as much attention to what's going on there, and part of that, of course, is the Iranian regime's total crackdown, complete lockdown on the ability of people to get footage out in the way that we normally experience it in conflicts. But look, that's something that I think people are going to have to wake up to, and there's a very real possibility that something like that happens. And that's
last question, Ben. If the United States government shut down the internet in the United States, what would it do to our growth? There's no business happening in Iran right now. There's no backup when you turn the internet off anywhere.
No, and I think that this is something that the protesters know as well. Look. There is a long story that came to this point. There is a lot of chickens coming home to roost here in terms of how we got here, why there is such a divide between the people and the regime, why there is a possibility here of actually having a stable nation, ideally. I mean, in the wake of this. There is an opening. There's a gleam, men.
All right, for the praying people, that's what we'll pray for. Ben Domenech, host of the Big Ben podcast. People, go and listen to it, like and subscribe it. Fox News contributor extraordinaire, and that podcast is one of the best in America, the Big Ben podcast. Go and listen to it and stay tuned to the Hugh Hewitt Show.